Hello everyone, my name is Jonathan Hernandez and this is my video presentation on the importance of ethics in the workplace and in ministry. And I first want to start with a quick short definition of what ethics is. And I like the way that it says here in this article that is produced by Theology of Work Project, and that is, ethics is about knowing and doing what is good or right. And now I'm going to start the first section of my presentation, and that is about ethics in the workplace. So keeping in mind that first definition with my topic on the workplace, we can conclude that workplace ethics is about knowing and doing what is good or right at work. Now, how do we know what is good or right? Well, there are many ethical systems that can help us make conclusions or come to conclusions of what is good, what is right, whether they're similar or whether they're contrary to one another. But there are systems that can help with that. But this is where we need to understand as Christians that any idea, any conclusions have to always be Christ-centered. And this is where biblical ethics come in place. And something that is very distinct of biblical ethics from other ethical systems, that is that the source of a more authority of biblical ethics is the Bible, which is the inspired Word of God. And something that is also interesting is that how this ties into this to the doctrine and principle of sola scriptura. Not only does sola scriptura help define theological terms, but it helps us define what is morality. So what does the Bible say about ethics in the workplace? There's really many examples that we can find, starting from Genesis all the way up to the book of Revelation. But I really want to mention this verse that I found in Colossians chapter 3, verse 23. Whatever you do, work heartily, as for the Lord, and not for men. And this verse also reminds me of what the book of Ecclesiastes says, and that is that what God commands us, that in everything we do with our hands, that we do it with all of our might. And that being said, how does that apply to ethics in the ministry? Well, I could just repeat everything that I have just said about the workplace. Everything that I said in there applies to this. But I do want to add some additional instructions that were given by Paul. And these instructions shows us what the pastoral leadership or ministry leadership should look like, because it describes characters and qualifications, and that is in 1 Timothy chapter 3 verses 1 through 7. And it tells us that a ministry leader should be above reproach, sober-minded, self-controlled, gentle, and not a lover of money. There's actually more descriptions, but there is something that really caught my eye as I was reading this, and that is a little bit further after that, and that is, it says that ministry leaders must hold the mystery of the faith with a clear conscience, which also reminds me of what Paul teaches us about leading by example. Like in 1 Corinthians, he tells us that we imitate me just as I imitate Christ. In the second part of my presentation, I'm going to be talking about some contemporary culture issues regarding ethics in leadership or the church. So something that is important to know and that cannot be ignored is that in our time there are multiple ideologies and ethical systems that may be similar to some conclusions of biblical ethics, but they may also be complete opposite of what biblical ethic teaches. And these ideologies and these systems are heavily influencing many secular circles. but it's gotten to the degree that it has reached even some Christian circles. For example, there's many um, historical Christian denominations that, although in their confessions of faith and confession of faith statements, they do believe that the Word of God is the divine, inspired Word of God. But some of their laymen, some of their leaders, some of their pastors, some of their theologians have now denied this, and it comes in conflict with what biblical ethic teaches. And since they have denied that the Bible is relevant, they are bringing these ideologies that are within secular circles, bringing it to their Christian circles, and causing a lot of confusion. For example, something that within Christian understanding, gender identity, gender roles, that may be clear to us. That may be very clear to us, but for others, it is just a lot of confusion. In gender identity, gender roles is not the only contemporary issue. There are many issues that we can also talk about. There's also issues about misconduct, about abuse of power, also institutional corruption, whether it's through financial means or whether it's through other means. The list just goes on and on. So how would I plan to apply what I've learned so far, to apply it? That would be everything that I have just said in pretty much in the first section of this. But instead of repeating everything that I have just said, I want to read what Jesus has said in Matthew chapter 22. And everything that I've said in my first section, everything that I missed, that I've not even close to mention, it's all defined in these two commandments. And this is what it says: you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the great and first commandment. And the second is like it: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets. And that being said, I want to close this presentation with what C.S. Lewis has to say about the same verses. A Christian society is not going to arrive until most of us really want it. And we are not going to want it until we become fully Christian. I may repeat, do as you would be done by, till I am black in the face, but I cannot really carry it out till I love my neighbor as myself. And I cannot learn to love my neighbor as myself till I learn to love God. And I cannot learn to love God except by learning to obey him. And so, as I warned you, we are driven on to something more inward, driven on from social matters to religious matters. For the longest way round is the shortest way home. God bless you all.